What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. Hope you're all doing very well. I want to do a fun little video here in preparation for the next patch for Season 4 of Dragonflight 10.2.6. It's on the PTR right now. I've been doing a bunch of testing with the new tier set bonuses or old tier set bonuses, depending on which one got chosen. And what I want to do in this video is highlight 3 healers that I am considering as my main healer for the next patch. So if you guys have seen previous videos, I tend to pick something that I want to play, that I really want to focus on in a particular patch and like get all the gearing for it and the trinkets and all that stuff. So there's 3 choices today. I'm not going to choose my healer main. This is a video where I want to present the 3 different healers for you guys, and I want you guys to tell me in the comments and let me know in Discord or wherever, but mostly in the comments down below, what do you think about the 3 different choices? What do you think I should choose? Because I am genuinely going to make a choice in the next week or so. Season 4 is probably happening mid to late April, and it's almost April right now. So I got to make a decision soon and make sure that my character's like up to snuff and geared. So let's start with the Mistweaver Monk. This is choice number 1, okay? Option number 1. We're going to do pros and cons, and we're going to talk a bit about utility and all that stuff. So when we think about Mistweaver Monk, the pros is that it is a super fun melee healer. It's a really good playstyle. I do enjoy a lot that it offers, and primarily we're thinking about Mythic Plus here, okay? Mythic Plus is the main thing that we're going to be focusing on in this video as well. So one thing that's going to be really good in Season 4 is that the tier set bonus is going to be really strong, okay? We're getting the same tier set bonus that's carrying through from Season 3. It's a little bit boring. I'll talk about that in a minute, but we are getting a strong tier set bonus that has a lot of healing that is coming through as well, which is very, very good. It doesn't give you any extra damage, unfortunately, so that is actually a con, I'm going to say, in a minute. But as for a pro, it is a strong healing tier set bonus, okay? As always with Mistweaver, we have insane mobility, okay? That's a big one. You have 2 rolls. You can get a 3rd roll if you want. You have Tiger Lust. You have a lot of mobility wrapped up in this kit. You are very, very mobile. I would say the most mobile of the 3 choices that I'm going to give you today. So that's a big buff for Mistweaver. You've got the best mana sustain in the game in terms of healers as well. With your Mana Tea, you can talent into different choices for Mana Tea, like Energizing Brew or Life Cycles. But generally speaking, you don't ever have to sit and drink in a dungeon, which is really, really awesome. Even if you end up spending a lot of mana on your spells, you're always going to have Mana Tea to get you back up to the top, and it feels really strong. So that is a huge plus in terms of pushing the momentum of Mythic Plus forward. Every dungeon, you don't have to sit down and drink like ever, which is really, really huge. You have a kick, which is a really big deal for a healer to have. You do have Spear Hand Strike. It's just a 15-second kick. It's very standard. Very, very good to have that because not all healers have one, actually, unfortunately, as we're going to see in a minute. So having a kick is good. I think you have either the best defensive kit of all the healers or the second best one to Paladin. Honestly, defensive-wise, it is really crazy how much you have. You have Dampen Harm. You could also take Diffuse Magic. This shield is criminally underrated from Yu'lon's Grace. It is an incredibly strong shield. It is just so, so strong. Honestly, the amount of damage that this thing blocks on every dungeon run, it's usually like 7% of my healing overall just from this. It stops things like bursting. It's just all kinds of magic damage going off in dungeons. So this is super strong and will keep you very, very tanky in the dungeon runs. You also, of course, have Life Cocoon to keep you alive as well. And lots of self-healing even on the Spec tree with things like Healing Elixir if you want even more to help you out with that. So you're incredibly tanky and you have a lot of sustain as a Mistweaver Monk. And I think that that is a huge deal in Mythic Plus. Not having a healer be like a liability in terms of defenses is a really, really big deal. I also enjoy playing the Windwalker and Brewmaster specs. So if I do end up maining like a healer, it's nice to have some off specs to jump into every once in a while. In terms of damage, the damage is also incredibly strong. I think that there's been a couple new talents introduced, one of them being Dance of Chi-Ji, and we can get some crazy damage numbers going now. And as everybody knows, you can just spin to win in Mythic Plus, and you will do an exceptional amount of damage. I actually don't think you have as much damage as some of the other choices that I'm going to show you in a minute, but the damage is really, really good. You can sustain 150 to 200k on AoE packs easily, like every single AoE pack, just by basically spinning with Feline Stomp or Jadefire Stomp now. So Really, really, really good. I like the damage. It's very easy to execute. And those are some of the pros. Let's talk about the cons. Speaking of the prawns. Your kick is a melee kick, so you do have to be in melee range to do it, and that is definitely a con. You know, there are other kicks, like Shaman, for example, has a range kick, probably the best kick in the game, right? That's a really, really strong thing, just to turn, tab target to an enemy and kick them immediately. With a monk, you can't. You got to be up close and personal, so that is a con, I would say. You must be in melee range in general to be very effective, and that's going to matter when we talk about one of the other options that I'm going to mention in a minute, which is Holy Paladin. I'll just bring it up now. A lot of Holy Paladin's healing and damaging spells can be cast from range, even though they are primarily a melee healer. For Monk, you don't have really that option. Yes, you can heal with things like Renewing Mist, but if you want to do big healing, you have to press Feline Stomp in melee. You have to spin with Spinning Crane Kick. You need to press Tiger Palm with Blackout Kick to get your Rising Sun kick back. It's very, very melee focused, and means you have to be up close and personal in the middle of the fray, and there's a chance that you get hit by mechanics. So it is a true melee healer compared to some of the other ones. So that's a bit of a con there. The tier set, as I said before, is strong on a healing sense, but has no damage. This doesn't give us any damage at all, and it's the exact same tier set bonus that we have now, which is a definite con. I do not like having the exact same tier set bonus for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months in a row if we do season after season. It's just, that is very boring to me. That's a huge reason why seasons are so fun, is because you get a different tier set bonus, and we're not getting that again with Mistweaver Monk. So that is definitely a con, I would say. There are no damage reduction externals on Mistweaver Monk. Yes, you have Life Cocoon. It is not a damage reduction external. You don't have any, in fact, on Mistweaver Monk. So that is a con for sure, because as you climb higher and higher into the bigger keys, you do need to start getting externals just to keep people alive, like hunters and sometimes priests, and it can be really difficult to keep people alive. So not having an external is a really, really big problem. And, of course, I just spent the entire last patch basically maining Mistweaver Monk, so that's going to be a bit of a con, but I'm not really going to count that because that was just my choice. So it's kind of not fair to Mistweaver to do that. So let's talk about the utility really quickly. They have pretty good utility. Of course, you have the Monk damage debuff that you're getting, right, just from being a monk. You're going to always apply the does it show up here? Mystic Touch, there it is, 5% more physical damage taken, so that tends to be pretty good in Mythic Plus. It doesn't apply to everybody, of course, but any other melee bros are going to be happy to have you in the group. You have Ring of Peace for Sanguine Weeks, which is really, really big. It can knock enemies out of Sanguine. It can just interrupt enemies in general. It is a very, very good ability. ROP is an awesome utility spell that can be used in multiple different ways. You have an AoE stun in your leg sweep, okay, which is really big. That's a 1-minute AoE stun. Afflicted is pretty easy to handle because you can just dispel Afflicted, and then you can do Soothing Mist into a big Vivify to top off the second one to make sure that you can instantly get it. If you don't have anybody else in the group that can help you with Afflicted, that's pretty good. You have Paralysis, for in-corp weeks, which is really, really big. You can also spec into Song of Chi-Ji, actually, if you didn't know, which gets rid of both in-corps if you line it up correctly. But generally speaking, you have an instant Paralyze for in-corp, which is huge. You have no cast time with this, right? You just turn, tab target, and boom, get rid of the in-corp right away. So I really like that. And then, of course, you've got Tiger Lust as a mobility that can remove all roots and snares, which is very helpful on certain fights. Things like Ruby Life Pools. Think about the dungeons we're going to get, right? In the first boss of Ruby Life Pools, there's a mechanic where you have to take the big storm out of the group. And if you have that chill storm, you want to get it out of the group, you can speed your allies up so they can get it really far away, because the damage drops off with distance, which is really important. Last boss of Uldamon is another example where he's gonna cast that slow on 2 different people, and that is really important to get rid of. Now, you can just dispel one person, but then you can Tiger Lust the second person, and that's going to remove both the debuffs, which is very, very huge, because that is a ticking dot that does a crazy amount of damage. So, utility-wise, actually, it's pretty strong, and I'm going to give it a good score here in a second. I would say, overall, if we're looking at damage, I think Monk has about an 8 out of 10 for damage on Mistweaver. For healing, I'm going to say about 8 out of 10 as well. It's good. It's not, necessarily going to be the best in the game, but it is really, really strong, and I think it's probably one of the best healers right now. and might be the best one in Season 4. We'll have to see on tuning. The tuning could change, of course. And then for utility, I'm going to say 7 out of 10. So it is quite strong. It's got a lot going for it. There's a total score there of 24. These are just arbitrary numbers, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there when we talk about comparing different specs. So Monk is a solid choice going into Season 4. We'll have to see how the other ones stack up. Let's jump over to Paladin. Or no, let's jump onto... We'll do Priest first. I'm going to get out of here, and we'll do our Holy Priest first. Holy Priest is going to be the second choice that I'm thinking about in terms of Season 4. They just got a really big mini rework to their talents, and I did a video on it, which was really exciting. It is an exciting time to be looking at Holy Priest. I don't know why these load screens take so long. Drives me crazy. But yes, we'll show you Holy Priest here, and then we'll do Paladin last. So I don't ever want to play Disc Priest. This is just not something I'm ever going to play, so that's not an option for me. Shadow Priest is a fun DPS that I do enjoy playing, so when we're talking about like other specs that are related, then, you know, that is an option, but I'm never going to play Disc Priest. It's just not something I'm good at, not something I really jive with. Holy is going to be the one that I play, but let's look at Holy Priest as a healer. This mini rework was actually crazy. They moved Miracle Worker up a little bit in the tree. You can see it right here. It used to be down here. You have access to Divine Word now if you want, or Restitution. If you don't want either of these, then you can spec all the way onto the left side of the tree and get Pontifex with Resonant Words. You could get the new Lightwell talent if you want to. There are a lot of talent choices and talent options now, which is really great. And it frees up some different slots, frees up maybe a bit of gameplay that you could change your style a little bit, spec into talents you don't normally spec into. Like I took Circle of Healing for the Mythic Plus week that just went past because it was actually really, really strong and has synergy with Voice of Harmony, of course. So there's some great talent choices here now that you have, and they've really buffed the talent tree in general. It is better than it's ever been, and I think that the rework to Imperial Blaze is also something that we're going to talk about here, and I'm going to show you on the dummies how strong this can be. That's a big pro for Holy Priest, is that the mini rework on the talents was awesome. They have really strong damage windows now, like super strong damage windows. So if we look at this, if I set this up, I think that Holy Priest can actually do some of the most damage of any of the healers in the game now. If we combo Divine Word with Chastise, it's going to buff our damage, and then we go into Apotheosis, and it's going to give us cooldown reduction on Chastise, and that's going to allow us to do even more damage. So watch this here. We're going to start off by renewing. I'm going to Serenity myself to give me a Divine Image. Then I'm going to go from there. I'm going to go Serenity. Then we do Chastise into double Holy Fire. We'll do this. We're cooling down our Chastise. Here we go. We'll go here, and then we're going to go straight into Apotheosis after this. Okay, we'll go Apotheosis, get our Chastise back. Holy Fire, Holy Fire. Our damage, you know, we were peaking at like 400k. I think if I did this correctly, it would have peaked at 400k. Oh, my Divine Image didn't go. Oh, that's why my damage is lower. For some reason, my Divine Word didn't work. It doesn't matter. We're getting cooldown reduction on Chastise. There we go. And it also cools down Holy Fire, which is awesome. And then Holy Fire is splashing to nearby enemies. So if I had done that like correctly, we would have been peaking at 400k. But you can see how powerful this is. You keep getting your Chastise back. It keeps getting you those instant Holy Fires that you can cast, and then you can supplement AoE damage and healing with Holy Nova. So the damage windows for Priest, for Holy Priest, are really strong. They're really, really good. This is one of the new trinkets, the Arcane Barrage. That's a very good trinket to pick up. So that's a strength of Holy Priest, that you've got this new Divine Word cooldown. If you want it, you can get 30% or 20% increased damage, and then refunding Chastise much more quickly, and then you can get those instant Holy Fires. It's an enormous amount of AoE damage. I mean, this is uncapped AoE, by the way, with Burning Venus. That was only 5 targets, so really good damage windows. I think the best damage of any healer, potentially. Just in general, Holy Priest is nuts now. I'm not even kidding, guys. This is crazy. If you haven't messed around with it, check out my other video that I did on Holy Priest. You're going to be surprised at how much damage this thing does. So that's a really big positive. The Season 3 tier set bonus is returning, which is a massive bonus for Holy Priest. This tier set bonus is the best one that they've gotten by far. This gives you the free Holy Words with your Sacred Revenants. And it makes your Renew really important, to be pressing Renew. I would have been happy with the Prayer Mending talent tree as well, or tier set bonus as well. But this one is really, I think, the most powerful one that Holy Priest could hope for. So again, it doesn't add any damage, which is not necessarily a big con, but it's just something to think about. But on the positive side, this is the best tier set bonus they could have brought in. So that's really, really good. There's really great utility on Priest in general. Things like PI, we're going to talk about this in the other section. They have huge burst healing on demand. If you stack up a couple of these sacred reverences, you can really pump out a crazy amount of healing, right? Like I have 2 stacks now. I can go Serenity, into Serenity, into Serenity, into Serenity. That's 4 single target heals. Then I can pop Apotheosis and get another Serenity, right? And then I can cool it down with Flash Heal. It goes back really, really quickly, right? There we go. I can pop Divine Word into a Serenity, and then I get it back. Like, your burst healing is disgusting. You can do the same thing with Sanctify. It's the exact same thing. You just have an incredible amount of burst healing on demand if you need it. Things like Circle of Healing and extra Serenities. You can just do multiple in a row. So I think it's really important to recognize how insane the burst healing actually is. I think compared to any other healer, you have some of the highest in the game when you really need those on-demand moments and everybody's about to die. So that is really, really huge. And then you actually have quite good mobility. I think people forget that you can take things like Body and Soul that makes your Power Word Shield give you a constant movement speed buff whenever you shield. Of course, you have 3 feathers. You can give these feathers to other allies, but for your own personal mobility, it's actually pretty strong. You're basically almost always moving at 40% MS if you're playing it correctly in Mythic Plus. So very, very good mobility. You can dodge a lot of problematic abilities that are on the ground if you need to while moving around. And your instant cast Holy Words are really good, including Chastise. It makes your Holy Fires instant. You have a lot of extra mobility. So those are really big positives there. Cons for Holy Priest. Defensively, you are definitely weak. You only really have Fade with improved Fade and Translucent Image. So reduces your damage taken by 10%, and you have cooldown reduction there, but it's really not that strong. Like, we're talking about one button that gives you 10% DR every 20 seconds. It's just not that good. It's really not that good. Otherwise, you have a Power Word Shield, and you could take Angelic Bulwark, but just it doesn't usually fit into the build. So you're very weak defensively. Yes, you can Flash Heal yourself and get the extra 10% DR there, but most of the time, it's not always on top of mind to be doing that, so you're very weak defensively. You have no external damage reduction except for, let's say, Guardian Spirit, but Guardian Spirit is not a damage reduction. It is just a get-out-of-jail-free card if somebody needs it, so you have no external DR at all, which is, again, really important in higher keys. If you don't have that, people are just going to die. So that's a big con for sure. You have no kick. Compared to Monk and Paladin, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, you have no actual kick. You do have a Chastise Stun or a Fear, an AoE Fear. Those are kind of nice, but you have no kick, which is a massive deal in Mythic Plus keys. I think it's a really important thing to recognize. And then you have really bad crowd control options. You have one AoE Fear, of course, with Psychic Scream. It's a 30-second cooldown. So that's like kind of comparable, I guess, to Leg Sweep, but it doesn't stun enemies. Leg Sweep actually stuns them. This just fears them for a second, and then as soon as you hit them again, you're going to break the fear. So not the greatest thing. You do have the a single target stun with Censure, but that means you have to take a talent out of your talent tree, where you could put that into like Enlightenment. You could put Cosmic Ripple. You could put it into something else like Crisis Management. I mean, there's lots of better options than Censure. So not great CC. Okay, let's talk about the utility. You, of course, have Fort Buff that you're giving to everybody. 5% stamina is really good. As I just mentioned, you do have your AoE Fear, which is good every 30 seconds, but it is just a fear. You have the Chastise single target stun. You do have Mass Dispel. This is severely nerfed from what it used to be, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. This is a 2-minute Mass Dispel. It's only really relevant for things like bursting. There are other important things in Mythic Plus where you can use this, but bursting is the main one, and it's only once every 2 minutes. So this is severely nerfed from what it used to be, and is very frustrating for that cause. I'm going to call it utility. Of course it is utility, but it just doesn't count for the same amount of utility that it used to. This used to be amazing on Priest. It's just not the same anymore. So that's not super good. PI is, of course, fantastic. We have Symbol of Hope, which is actually really good for getting people's defensive cooldowns back. 30 seconds of their defensive cooldown is actually pretty good for tanks in Mythic Plus. Very nice. You do have Dispel Magic, which is nice for getting rid of one beneficial effect on an enemy. It's like a purge, right? Which is really good. Afflicted is quite easy for Priest because you can just Dispel plus Power Word Life, the second one, and you get rid of both Afflicteds. And then Incorp is very good for Priest because you can take Dominate Mind, and you can take one of them over, and then they'll actually debuff the enemies, and then you can Shackle the other one if you want to. So Incorp Weak is actually pretty good for Priest. So there's definitely some good utility here, but there's been some utility that's been giga nerfed and is just not the best. So it's kind of a wash there. Okay, in terms of their score, I would say damage-wise, they're going to get a 9 out of 10. I'm not going to give them a perfect score because nothing is really perfect, but they are better than the other options. I'm telling you right now, the damage on this spec is outrageous. It's really, really strong. So 9 out of 10 because of the rework. Their healing's going to be 8 out of 10. I think it's just as good as Monk healing. It just has a little bit of a different, like, emphasis. Like, it has really strong burst healing if you need it with your holy words. Not as much necessarily consistent healing with just like a Feline Stomp and Spin situation for Monk, sorry. But again, your mastery really does help to pick up the slack in terms of the healing over time, giving you some consistent healing. So I'm going to give 8 out of 10. It's very strong. Utility is only 6 out of 10. The reason I'm doing that is because Mass Dispel has been so nerfed, okay? It's really not the button it used to be. So yes, they have other great utility like PI and even things like Mind Soothe. Mind Soothe is very, very good. But this has been knocked down such a peg. It is so bad compared to what it used to be. They don't have consistent AoE stuns or CC on mobs, which is a huge problem in Mythic Plus. Right? We're thinking primarily about Mythic Plus and what you can contribute. I'm going to say 6 out of 10 from the Holy Priest. So their total score is 23 instead of 24, which is what the Monk got. Let's take a look at Paladin. Let's finish this off with Paladin. This is my third option, something that I'm thinking of choosing as my main healer. Yes, I know I haven't included Shaman in this list. Shaman is something that I'm just basically always going to have in the background, so I'm just not including it. But in terms of the healer that I want to main, I want to pick something kind of new and fresh and interesting, or something that isn't always going to be Shaman, because I'm going to have Shaman going in the background always. It's just the way it goes. You guys know me. I'm always playing Shaman. Let's look at Paladin. What are the pros for Paladin? The little, oh, that's Breeze, sorry. They have a really great tier set coming back. So they're getting the, basically Prism tier set bonus or Light's Hammer, but it's almost always going to be Prism. This does give you a damage buff, including, as well as a healing buff. So it has a pro right there in terms of the tier set bonus coming back is strong in and of itself, is a very strong tier set bonus, and it can give you extra damage because Prism, of course, is an ability that can hit enemies and allies. So very, very good. Prism also just does way more healing, and it's going to generate holy power, which is awesome. It has a lot of utility there. Getting Prism, like, the reason I say Prism is better for damage is because you might not take Prism right now as a Holy Paladin, but you're definitely going to take Prism in the next season because the entire tier set bonus focuses on it. So it's less about the fact that the tier set bonus actually gives you damage. On Prism, it doesn't, but you're going to have to take Prism, so you're going to be doing more damage just because of that, which is nice. But the tier set itself is super strong and super fun, and I'm glad that it's coming back. There's a pretty flexible talent tree going on here. You can take things like a 1-minute Wings with Avenging Crusader, 2-minute Wings with Avenging Wrath to get the crit. You have multiple beacon options depending on the situation that you're in. You can take Blessing of Summer to help buff your allies. So there's a lot of like really cool talent changes that you can actually do on the tree, which makes it more fun and more interesting for me in terms of actually just, playing this for months and months and months at a time. I want it to be a little bit more flexible. I want to have some options so that I don't, just get bored playing the exact same thing over and over again. So that is pretty cool. They, of course, have a kick, which is really important, and you can buff your kick with Crusader's Reprieve. I'm saying that this kick is better than the Monk kick because of Crusader's Reprieve, giving it that range. You get an extra 3 yards of range on your kick, which is no joke. That is really, really good. You can see right here, it's a 15-second. It's just like the Monk one. It does have melee range, but if you take this Crusader's Reprieve, it becomes a ranged kick, which is a massive deal. Obviously, 3 yards is not like a Shaman. It's not that long, but the point is it's really important. Sometimes you're in a serious moment where you need to swivel your camera and like immediately kick something really, really quickly, but you might just be out of range. With this talent, you won't be, so that makes it a really good kick. You have insane utility, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but I mean, things like Freedom and Sack and Bop, and I mean, we're going to cover them all in the utility section. You have external damage reductions, multiple. This is a massive deal. So you can take Blessing of Sacrifice, of course. You can make it a 1-minute cooldown, which is just insane. And then you can buff it even further with Echoing Blessing, meaning that the target's damage reduction, instead of it being 20%, it'll be 35%. And then the 15% damage reduction will linger for 8 seconds afterwards. So it makes Blessing of Sacrifice the best DR like in the game to just hand out to somebody. It is so strong. And then, of course, you always have your aura going. You're going to have 3% damage reduction from Devo Aura, and then you're going to have Aura Mastery, which makes the damage reduction 12% instead. So just always having damage reduction on allies is a massive deal. It really allows you, honestly, to have more flexibility in the group compositions that you can pull together. Things like Hunters and Priests, which are, and even Evokers, which don't have the best like defensive kit or DR kit themselves, you can bring them in. Shamans, right, which are kind of traditionally weak, you can bring those guys in and just sack them and make their life so much easier. It's a really big deal on higher keys. This makes the healing kit for Paladin much more attractive. You're incredibly tanky as a Paladin just in general. I should have 2 points in Sanctified Plates. I don't know why I don't. I'll fix that in a minute. But you have Sanctified Plates giving you armor, stamina, damage reduction. You have, of course, your own DR in Divine Protection, a 42-second, 20% DR. That is so insane. Compared to like Shaman or like the Priest that we just saw with Fade. Fade only gives you 10% DR. And yes, you can flash heal to give yourself 20%, but it's just not the same as having one button that gives you 20% for 8 seconds. You have Bubble, which can keep you alive in situations where you just don't have to worry about it, right? You've got Devo Aura going all the time, Aura Mastery. You're just really, really tanky as a Paladin in general. You have more health because of things like Sanctified Plates. It's just really strong. So super tanky. As tanky as the Monk, or maybe even a little bit more tanky. But I would say Monk is like tankier in a different way, the Mistweaver Monk. So, but very tanky, which is good. You have decent mobility. Actually, you have pretty good mobility. For a while, I thought Paladin was really bad. Look how long this Divine Steed lasts for. You can make Divine Steed last a very long time, right? I would say it's not better in its mobility compared to Monk or Priest, but having access to like Freedom, giving you the 15% movement speed from Echoing Blessings, and then having 2 charges of Steed that last longer, I think it's actually quite strong. Your mobility is good. It's not the best in the game, but it's good enough. Definitely good enough. Let's talk about cons. Your damage is actually quite low, and this is a really big con for Paladin. Unfortunately, your damage basically relies on you having really good trinkets, things like Augury and Kyrakas. Now, or other trinkets as well, things like the weapon that does Shadow Flame damage. Now, in Season 4, we're going to be able to just buy trinkets. So your access to really hard-to-get trinkets that you would have to get in a raid is like way higher. It's like 100%, right? So if I wasn't able to get Augury in the season when Augury was a thing, I might be able to get it now in Season 4. So that makes their damage actually a little bit better because you're going to be able to have access to these things. But the damage profile is like, it's okay, but it's just really reliant, I would say, on having trinkets that do a lot of the work for you. And that's just too bad. Like, yes, we have a big burst of damage right now, but you can see we're dipping below where my Holy Priest was already. We're already lower than the Holy Priest by like a mile. So it's something that I'm going to have to work on over the course of the season and see how I can sort of make it work. But the reality is the damage is good, but it's not great. It's nowhere near the best of any of the healers. It's not, again, it's not bad. I would not say that their damage is bad at all, but it's not great. So it's something I'm going to have to work on, try to make it a little bit better, and we'll see how it kind of goes as I get through the season on Holy Pally, because it's going to be fun if I end up choosing this, right? But this is one of those cons that just, it really rears its ugly head. You're like, you just feel like you play one of the other healers and you get the DPS rotation going and you just blast a pack and do 400k as like a Holy Priest, and then you jump in on Paladin and you're like, oh, I have to work so much harder at this to do anywhere near the same amount of damage, and it's still not even the same amount of damage. So we'll see. We're going to see if I end up choosing this. This is a huge con for Paladin, is that their damage is much lower. And in Mythic Plus, you do need to do damage. I mean, it's just I know people don't like that idea, but you really do. You have to make sure you're pumping damage as a healer. Their mana sustain is better than Priest, but worse than Monk. So it's actually decent. You have things like Daybreak, which give you your mana back, 2,000 mana per Glimmer consumed, and then you have things like Reclamation, which also give you your mana back, and Divine Revelations, which will also give you your mana back if you throw Judgment when you're empowered by Infusion of Light. So there are good ways to get mana back, better than Priest for sure. Not as good as Monk. Nobody's as good as Monk. That's just the way it is with Monk. So I would say mana is kind of like a wash. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. I'm putting it in the con section because it's not the best, but it's kind of not bad, not good. Let's talk about utility. Devo Aura, 3% DR, Blessing of Freedom. You can remove movement and pairing effects, including roots and snares and all that stuff. You can do Lay on Hands, which just instantly gets somebody back to full, which is crazy. You, of course, have your Kick, which we talked about. You have Sack. 1 minute Sack is completely crazy. You have Blessing of Protection, which you can also reduce the cooldown on that, but Blessing of Protection is just so insane for dealing with certain mechanics. Think about the tree boss right now in Wakecrest Manor. You can just remove the root that's on somebody, and they don't take any damage anymore. Just boom, you just clear them right away. Really, really strong utility with that. Echoing Blessings, giving you extra damage reduction, extra movement speed. You have an AoE interrupt in Blinding Light. You have a single target Repentance, which can be used on Incorp mobs. You have a single target stun with, of course, your Hammer of Justice, a 6-second stun on a 1 minute cooldown. You can actually cool it down even more if you want to take Fist of Justice. And you have a Battle Res, which is really insane. Battle Res, you've got the Devo Aura, as I said before, but Battle Res is huge. The other two healers do not have a Battle Res, so that is a massive deal. Having Intercession, very, very good to bring to a Mythic Plus composition. They're always looking to cover all the bases, right? Battle Res, Lust, you need all those different things. Try to get as many buffs as you can, but Paladin definitely has, I think, the best utility of the three healers that I'm talking about today, Monk, Priest, and Paladin. I think that Paladin is just huge there. Let's look at the score. Damage, we're going to go 7 out of 10. I'm going to say that's with trinkets, and you're going to be able to get trinkets pretty easily, right? We talked about that, so I think you're going to be able to get things like Augury, which you can see account for a huge chunk of my damage. So, yes, I'm going to say 7 out of 10 with trinkets, which you will be able to acquire. Healing is 8 out of 10. It's just as good as the other ones, if not better in certain situations. Utility is 9 out of 10 because their utility is just the best, especially because you have things like external DRs and bubble. You still have CC. I mean, you've got it all on the Pally. So their score is going to be 24 as well, the exact same as the Monk, but they're just getting a different, kind of going up and down in different ways. So let me know what you guys think. The purpose of this video is for you guys to tell me what you think about these three healers as I've presented their pros and cons. I think I know kind of where I'm leaning, but I really want to hear from you guys. What do you think about these three options as a healer main going into Season 4? Please let me know in the comments down below. I want this to be a big discussion. Let me know your thoughts. What are you playing in Season 4? If you're picking a healer, I hope maybe I've swayed you one way or the other. And if I have, let me know what healer you might be picking. And that might help me decide what I'm going to be picking as well. Please let me know in those comments down below. Would love to hear from all of you guys. Thank you so much again for watching. I love you all. I will see you in the next one when I decide what my healer is going to be in Season 4.